Hello everyone, welcome back to the second part of the Final Fantasy XIV area ranking. I am back to do more rankings of areas after the last time. Basically doing this as soon as I did the last one, well saying that no I had to quit the graphics, but yes, it's time to do more. This time we're going to be doing Stormblood and Shadowbringers. Stormblood being everyone's favourite expansion, and Shadowbringers being everyone's least favourite expansion. So I got them both here in two groups. We're going to start with Stormblood, and then go to Shadowbringers, obviously. And the difference between these two expansions in terms of area quality is massive. Well, actually, no, not as big as you think, actually. Saying that now, thinking about it. But let's get started, shall we, with the first area in Stormblood, which I thought was kind of surprising anyway, is Valga's Reach. You don't usually start in the smaller city-state. You don't usually start in the small location. So in each expansion, you get the big city-state, Old Charlian, Crystarium, and then you also get the end-game hub area. Well, you get the end-game hub area first in Stormblood. You go to Valga's Reach. Yes, it isn't that important until later in the game, but for the most part, you come here and you do this. And I found it fascinating. This is what they did for this entire area. They had Valga's Reach here for the end game, and it was already there. So, yeah, Valga's Reach. I don't mind it. It's a little forgettable compared to the other areas, and I think that is a big theme going with Stormblood. It's cool. I like the big statue. I like the waterworks. I like the design of it, but it's kind of in the same area as Idleshire, I would say. I don't think it's as good as Idleshire either, because I like the Moblin culture more, or the Goblin culture more. I think it's a bit boring, which is something that, again, especially Alamigo suffers from in this game, so I think it's going to go in alright. So I'm going to put it in there. Right, moving on, we have the Fringes. So you're going to be seeing there's a lot from the Alamigo areas, unfortunately. I am a big sucker for deserts. I love a good desert area. But despite this, the level of quality, I think, is kind of mixed. And I think it has something to do with the story. Like, the story in The Fringes is a nothing burger for the most part. It involves you taking over an outpost and then dealing with some snakes. For the most part, nothing really happens in the Fringes. It's just another area that you go through before heading to the next place. It doesn't feel like it has its own identity outside of the giant attack where Shinryu went through, or the Belsar's wall. Like, being on the other side of Gridania is cool. It feels like you're connected to the map in that way, and I don't hate that. I think that its design and striking appearance definitely levitates it over others from Realm Reborn, and to a certain extent Heavensward as well. Like, the ecosystem kind of changes. Closer to Gridania, you have the trees, and then as you get further and further away, it becomes more deserty. I like the big impact. This is where Omega is, technically. But unlike Alexander, it isn't as, the area does not change as much. So, overall, I don't hate it. I think it's fine. It serves its purpose, but I kind of want more from that in an area. I want it to be like, oh, some really cool things here. I can really feel the culture in this area, because I just never really enjoyed the Lakshmi stuff. I thought that was a bit boring compared to other aspects of this expansion. Like, Agani was so rich with culture, and then you've got this place, which is just very boring. So, yeah, it's going to be low, probably. But how low? Because Valga's Reach isn't alright. I don't want to put it too low. Why did that just happen? Don't you do that. Stop it. Get out of here, Java. I'm not doing an installation right now. I think I'd put it below a Gold Saucer? And maybe, would I put it below East Shroud? Because these two areas are very similar. They connect to each side of the Belsar's wall. I honestly think there is more interesting stuff going on in East Shroud than the Fringes. It's bigger, sure, but, like, you have the really cool looking Sylph place. You got the Sylphs themselves. You got the forest area, the Thorns. And for the most part, I think it's pretty, but I don't know. I'll leverage it for the base fact that it is bigger, and they put a lot more work into it as an area. So I'll put it there. Moving on to probably the most forgettable area in the entire game. Even this one unlocks, actually, I'd say. It's amazing to me that Stormblood has some pretty good areas in the Kagani half, and then when it comes to Alamigo, it's so boring. Look at this place. Look how nice the rock formations are, and I love the giant like skyline of the Guardian base on top of the mountain. But for the most part, it's not very, very memorable. Like even the inverted pyramid, I don't know how they're capable of doing this, but for the most part, I just always forget that the peaks exists. And I think that is mainly because it is a desert area that is, I think, mishandled for the most part. And the story here, again, it's better than the peaks. Not the peaks. I forget what it's called. This is the worst part of this. I don't remember what these 3 fucking areas are called. The fringes, right? The fringes. It is better than the fringes because there's more interesting story beats here. Ascidian does appear and beats up some people and destroys the giant gun. Weirdly, like Ascidian's involvement in this expansion reminds a lot of Dawnshell's involvement of him. Like he shows up a couple of times, but doesn't really do a whole lot in the pot, and I prefer that to his well, I don't prefer it, but I like that that's how they're handling him. If you can't write him and have him just be there as a permanent party member, then at least give him some cool things to do. So, the peaks. Where would I put you? Giant skyline. You have a really cool dungeon with the motorbike monsters. I don't know if I'll put you above Valgus Reach. And I don't know if I'll put you over Southern Fanalan. Because I think Northern Fanalan does a better job of its presentation. Oh, okay, I'll put it below Valgus Reach just about, I think. So we'll move this down and I'll do that now. And finally moving on to the locks, which is the best area in the entire game. Like, it just is. And you know the one reason why? The Saltery. The Saltery is here. The legend. The legend of the greatest invention in all of Eorzea. And where it came from and how it grew over time. And the rich history of the Saltery and how they mined all that salt in the locks. It was magnificent. And I loved it. Jokes aside, it's a bit disappointing as an area. I think the Saltery is the best part. Like, unironically, is the best part just because I like how funny it is. But, like, you have this giant castle in the background of your area, similar to, what, Uldar? And they don't let you go in there. You have this like, little side area where it's not even a main castle, it's just this little place you go to. And they never let you go into the main castle itself. Well, dungeon-wise, of course they do. But imagine getting to explore the streets of Alamigo, getting to see the sights. I am betting the reason why the Tempest is as big as it is and why there's a giant city is because they regret not being able to let you go into Alamigo proper in this. And they were like, let's just make you go into Amarot, who cares? It is annoying because I think the area surrounding it is kind of interesting. I like the salt marshes. The graveyard is very creepy. There's this whole like ruins you can go through. But like the side area for Alamigo, this little like market quarter is so boring. And MSQ-wise, it isn't much better. Like, I like Zenith a lot, but this does just feel like an objective. Like, we're going here to do this. There's not a lot of emotional attachment outside of just freeing Alamigo, I guess, which doesn't feel as insurmountable as it probably should have felt. So, yeah, there's that. I think that the area itself is pretty. I love the look of Alamigo. There's some good plot points that happen here, even after Stormblood ends. I mean, you've got the Fandaniel stuff with Luna Bahamut, and let's not forget about the incredible fight that is Shinryu, so... I don't really want to tie that to this, though, because it's not Alamigo. I can't call this area Zone Alamigo because it isn't. They purposely take that title away from it because it's called the Locks. It is a place that is observing Alamigo and doesn't let you actually go into the city proper. If they did that, and there was a little bit more of a juicy storyline here, this area could have been fantastic. But unfortunately, it's let down by the kind of false hope that we'd eventually get to go explore the main city. The water stuff is fine, like, it's a mechanic the game forgets about itself a lot of the time. It works as an area. Now, where do I put it? Not imperfect. I would honestly put it below the peaks, I think. I wouldn't put it below the fringes. I'm tempted to put it above Northern Fanlan, just because you get to actually explore the Amalja ruins, and the desert area is kind of cool. So, yeah, I'm going to do that. It's alright, though. It's alright, because next we've got Kagane. You thought that I would hate every single zone in Stormblood? No. This is the best city-state in the entire game, and in my opinion, it still is, even after Dawn Trail. There is a certain level of quality and compactness to the way that they design Kagane that I don't think has ever been rematched in any other city-state. Crystarium, too big and empty. Old Sharlayan, small, cozy, but doesn't feel as lively as Kagane, I would say. And then Tulialal also comes into the too big and too empty kind of spot. Although I will say that Tulialal is much better than the Crystarium. If I was ranking the city-states themselves, I would say that it's higher. And then you've got Ishgard. Love Ishgard to pieces. But again, doesn't hold a candle to Kagane. In terms of raw substance and the culture, every single part of this city has something different or unique going on in it. There's a merchant quarter. There are 2 towers. One of the towers you can parkour up of. There is a sauna. There are different buildings used for different things. Everything in the city feels meticulous, and every part of it is being used to their full advantage as designers of a city-state. You can't surpass Kagane, in my opinion, and that's not even stopping the amazing music here. The Stormblood theme is fantastic. The one thing holding it down, and I was thinking of putting it in Boopin because of this, is the Prima Vista. If you do the Alliance raid for Stormblood, or if you finish Stormblood in fact, a giant airship appears in the background and blocks out the skyline. And it really is annoying, because that stays there for the rest of the game. It blocks out the sun setting. It means when you look over there, you're always going to see the Prima Vista just blocking out the beautiful land, beautiful water beyond. I don't hate it. I just wish Square that, the Prima Vista could maybe go away and we didn't block the sun in Kagane. But outside of that, love Kagane. Plenty of great story stuff here. Probably my favourite part of the Stormblood story, outside of one other area we'll get into soon. I love the little catfish fish people. Love the parkour tower. We can't get enough of it. This area is so good. I used a loading screen image and I shouldn't have done that, but I did. I absolutely adore Kagane, and I would live here. Out of all the city-states, I would live in Kagane because it's wonderful. And you can tell the devs put so much love and effort into this zone. Maybe that's why the other 3 areas sucked. They were putting all their effort into the second half of the game. I mean, there's a common criticism about Stormblood is the fact that they split the zones into halves. And I kind of agree. Like, it just means that the quality level is going to differ because each zone is written by a different person, quite literally. I think Ishikawa wrote the Doma stuff, which is probably why it's better, but I don't. Let's ignore that for now and continue on with the next thing. The Ruby Sea. Now, the Ruby Sea has one massive thing going for it, or 2 things, I guess. Heaven on High looks great. I love the turtle people, and the underwater stuff is really cool. The issue is, though, is that following on from this, the devs really struggled to find a reason to use the underwater stuff. It comes case in point in the Tempest, where you have a zone that's literally like under the water, but you can't swim at all in it. It's just amazing that it introduces this mechanic about swimming and then they just barely used it after this. But yes, Ruby Sea, I think is a bit forgettable, which is weird because it has a whole bunch of cool landmarks. It has the volcano, it has the trial here, I forget the name of him. It has a really interesting and scary place where if you keep going down into the water, you'll eventually reach this like weird little underwater city, which is cool, like into the abyss itself. I'm kind of more preferential to this than some of the Alamigo areas, actually, just because it's more interesting and they're doing something different with the structure here to what they've done to in the past, and I can definitely rate it highly for that. But my issue mainly stems from the story. While I think the Doma stuff is better than the Alamigo stuff, I think that the two of these areas are really boring in terms of story progression, and one of them is really good. So with that in mind, Ruby Sea, where are we going to place you? I want to put you in... I don't know if I want to put you in Great. I don't know if you deserve that. Maybe just because of your structure and how different you are, I'd put you in Great. Yeah, I'd put you over Idleshire. I would. Let's put this here at the end. I think that's a good place for it. Time for most controversial opinion ever. With Yanksha, the place where Doma is. Doma Castle. I don't like how events play out in Doma Castle. Like looking on it in back, like what it did in 5.3, not 5.3, 4.3, fantastic. Love Sokuyumi and the Castrum stuff. But Doma itself is a little bit... I just didn't enjoy the obvious Kasetsu sacrifice. You can see it coming a million miles away. And then luckily they go back on it in 4.3 anyway, and they fix it. So I'm glad that they made it a little bit less cliche. But yeah, you save Doma. You deal with the evil witch. The big thing that I think many people don't like, and I can agree to this, is the giant wall in the area. There was a lot of running around in Doma. And because of the wall, you have to go through it to get to the other area. Obviously, this is not a problem because you can just use A-Flight to travel, but for some unknown reason, they decided to put the A-Flights very close together. Yes, on each side of the wall, but also, what the fuck? There's so much time you spend here just flying around, and I rated, admittedly, Dravania Hinterlands high. Even though it has a lot of flying around, I think that the area and substance of that place is fantastic. I like the look of Yanksha. I think it looks great. But also, I hate traversing through it. And I don't know what it is about it. I just don't like it. I think it's the weakest out of the three areas. Maybe, like, even more than the Ruby Sea. I don't want to put it in alright. I think it's better than a lot of the other areas. I think it's better than Gridania. I'll put it at the end of... I don't want to put it in Great, actually. I think I'll put Valga's Reach at, between it and Valga's Reach in the peaks, I think. And now we move to the best area in Stormblood. Outside of Kagane, I would say the Zim step is fantastic. In terms of story, all the characters here are really likable, and they spend a lot of time developing the cultures here. Actually, it feels a lot like what they did in Dawn Trail with the first half of that game, where you were finding out about different cultures at different areas, and because of how vibrant and different the area feels, it's very refreshing. You get to experience each tribe, how they deal with death, and kind of status within this place. You do the Nardum, which is really cool. Bardam's Metal is a fantastic dungeon that is highly underrated in my opinion in terms of its mechanics. And overall, I the Azim Step is a really fun place to explore. It's weird, right? Because like the Azim Step is a very flat pet place. Massive open stretches that you would refer to as empty for the most part. But in terms of the style that they're going for here, with it being this giant plains, this culture, enriching culture that spans across this area, the expansiveness adds to the area rather than distracts me, I think. you can just feel the scale of this place, all these different people, all the different ideals, and how they see the place. Also, it has probably the best scene in the entire game, where Y'shtola calls Magni little son. We can't forget about that. Literally Y'shtola's first badass moment in the entire game. It's amazing. But no, I love this place. It has a special place in my heart for many, I think, as well. It's like the one place in Stormblood where everything is running on all cylinders in terms of story, characters. You just like this place a lot. You like exploring it, you like going through it. I loved it. And it gives me a homely feeling whenever I see these characters show up again, because, I mean, who doesn't love Magni or the names that go off my tongue right now? Sardu, Magni, Sardu, and Cirilla, I think her name is. They're great, and they're all very different as well. And it feels like whenever we cut back to Stormblood in the MSQ, it's always about the Azim step. Like, even in Endwalker, like, it comes back because I know much people loved it. So, yeah, good job. I'm going to put it in... I would say perfect. I would say it's the third perfect area. Maybe I'll put it top of Boopin. No, you know what? Fuck it. Stormblood, you get 2 areas in perfect. Good job, Stormblood. You did it. And that's it. That's Stormblood. Now moving on to Shadowbringers. So, I mean, there's no, like, preamble we need to do for Shadowbringers. Everyone knows how fantastic it is. It's my favorite expansion in the game. It really fucked me up emotionally, and I love the first and all of its entirety. Now, saying that, it is worth noting that I do generally think the middle part of this game is really slow and takes its sweet ass time to get through plot beats. But I don't mind that, because a sense of adventure and getting to hang out with the Scions personally for a little bit, and Emmett, works quite nicely. Weirdly, I think the Crystarium is the weakest part of the Shadowbringers, which is weird considering some of the best stuff in the entire game happens here. But the main thing that's holding it back is low polygon grapes. No, it's very big and empty. Like, the domes are cool, the different culture is nice, seeing all the what are they called? Those creatures that they ride, the Seto thing, is cool. But it's just too darn empty. It feels like there's so much space that could have been used for other stuff, or just make it smaller, is my suggestion. I like the library area. I like the flora area with all the flowers and stuff. I like the resting. I like the places, but for the most part, it feels very empty, and the lack of people in it makes it, again, feel like there's not a whole lot going on here. It falls into the same issue I think Tolyalau falls into, where it's meant to feel like it's very busy and populous. Maybe not. Maybe the intention was it to feel empty, but considering the music here and how upbeat it is and hopeful, I would disagree on that. I don't think that was the intent at all. It's meant to feel like this is the last vestige of humanity. The last hope in a world that's being consumed by light. The Crystal Tower. Amazing. I love it. This is not a bad area. It's not a bad city state, but I think it's one of the weakest ones in the game. Just in terms of style and, again, how expansive it is, despite it not needing to be as big. Grahat here was like, I don't know. He just like, I want a big city state. I don't know. I want to have a really big place to call home. It was compensating, I guess, but like, I don't know. I'll put it in great. I don't think it's bad necessarily at all. I think it's better than Gridania and Older. I don't think it's better than Limsa though. I'm going to put it between Limsa and the Gold Sorcerer, I think. I think Limsa's better. Yeah, I'd actually say that quite adamantly, the Limsa is better. But the music, man, and the sense of home that you have with Crystarium. The place where you leave in 5.3 and you realise, I really like the first, I don't want to go, I want to stay here with my friends. And it's like, no, you have to. You have to go on, return home. And yet, the first feels like a home. Shadowbringers does that to you. It makes you feel like you don't want to leave, and you have to, and it's heartbreaking. So, for that, good job, Ishikawa. Good job, writers. It's like the anti-Stormblood in that regard, where I want to get out of Alamigo, but I want to stay in the first. So yeah, let's move on. Speaking of high-quality areas, what a sight to first come into in Shadowbringers, being in this unknown world, this unknown reality, and taking your first steps into a light-torn world, the Lakeland. There are many areas in fantasy games where it's like, oh, look how original this feels. Lakeland feels like one of the most original zones I've ever seen in a video game. The pink trees, the luscious pink fields. Like, I love it so much that I eventually used it in my own D&D game because I was like, god damn, this area is beautiful. The music here too, fantastic. You just feel the sense of, this is an unknown world. It's a new frontier, it's a new place entirely. And like, yeah, your first survival of Shadowbringers is wonderful. There's a bit of swimming going on here. There's Bismarck, you know, the giant whale. There's the great siege that you have on that castle area. Not a whole lot happens, like, in Lakeland. You don't, like, spend a lot of time there, usually. But you do have really big moments that take place in Lakeland. You have the rain event, where you're fighting against Yormor and the Sin Eaters. You have the eventual collapse with the Echo and the final day's visage appearing in the sky with all the warriors of light appearing. You've got some humorous things like Oyongjay falling into the water. A lot of great little moments that transpire in Lakeland that make it just feel pleasant. It's weird, right? Because you've got the sky and how it just feels like overstimulus. So much stuff is going on at once. But with Lakeland and how pleasant the colours are, you just kind of feel comfy there. And I, for one, feel very comfy in this place. And I'm glad that we have a location like this where it's like, oh, Lakeland. I never feel like going to Lakeland is a chore. So, yeah, it's one of the best, like, transition area, like, sort of semi-hub area places in Shadowbringers. So, I wouldn't put it in Bupin. Oh, perfect, sorry, but I would put it in Bupin. I'm going to put it above Mordona. It's the better of the two Crystal Tower areas. I would put it higher than Azazlar, too. I think it's such a pleasant to look at area. And now moving on to, again, great desert area in this game. They can't help themselves. They've always got to have at least one of these in each expansion. Amarang. I think that's how you say it. If this is just a desert with a city and the trolley stuff in it, this area would be kind of forgettable. But what they do here is they have the giant wave of light crashing against the shores of this place, causing utter destruction. And it is such an iconic visage. The loading screen for this area is fantastic. Just seeing the wave of light creeping over. You can't get more fantasy than that. It reminds me a lot of the Crystal Lake you go on in Final Fantasy 13. I love frozen things like the Dead Sea in Chrono Cross as well. Like when you have like this frozen wave, I'm always a sucker for it. Just keep doing it, keep shoveling me with all this frozen water and stuff. I love it. So, yeah. The trolley stuff, we do need to talk about it because it does hold the area back a little bit, but not that much, I would say. I think the issue is that this area is great because of that giant wave, and everything else is okay. It doesn't do anything amazing, I would say. It works. It works for what it is. The trolley stuff is not good. But this area also has Welcome to Shadowbringers in it, where we lose a friend and they turn into a Sin Eater. And that is one of the most traumatic scenes I've ever seen in my entire life. And that's how they welcome you to this fucking game. So I can't really ignore that. I think that moment vastly overshadows, maybe overlights actually, not overshadows, the trolley stuff. So I'm going to happily put it in... Would I put it in... I wouldn't put it in Bupin. but I'm going to put it a little lower in the Crystarium. I think I'll put it just below it, I think. I think it's a bit, no, I'll put this here. Amaran can go there. As you can see, the quality of the areas is increasing now because we haven't had an all-right yet. Don't think we are. Oh, no, sorry, we are about to have an all-right. Give me a sec. Oh, yes, I know the music. Lahi, we can joke about it. It's time. We've been waiting for it. We're here. The Raktika Greatwood. This is probably the weakest zone in the expansion. I don't like big forests that feel empty, and this forest feels empty. There's some good landmarks. The destroyed settlement that you never get to see because it was in the intro, and you never get to see it in its full prosperity. The night watch, the night people are cool. I like their culture a lot. I feel bad for them. The Vonka ruins, I'm a bit indifferent on. I like, plundering old temples. That's fine. It has a great sense of adventure. That instance you do inside of the temple is fantastic, and I love that. But everything else is kind of and yes, Lahi, wonderful, fantastic song. I think that the area itself is greatly enhanced by Lahi, but it doesn't change the fact that I think this is the weakest part of the Shadowbringers story. It's so mundane. Go to ruins, check them, go in. Great instance. Dungeons alright, I would say. I wouldn't say dungeons great. I think the dungeons are a little boring, but Emmett Selk's moment where he's like, he rescues Ishtola from the flow. I don't like how that's set up. Like Ishtola recklessly throwing her life into harm's way. Yes, she knew she could use flow to survive, but we didn't know that at the time, so yeah, there's that. Ishtola's fine. Runar's fine. They have a weird love moment that I don't really know why that's a thing, but it is. I know many people love that. Many fans of Ishtola really love the fact that Runar is a character who exists. But yeah, I mean, we can't forget about the Great Ronka Serpent. The incredible creature that it is. I think this is the only alright area in Shadowbringers. But it isn't low. I would put it above Valgus Reach, I think. And put Older a little higher. Right. Yormore. I have a big soft spot for this place because I love dystopian, weird, like, this places where people go at the end of the world to enjoy themselves. And Yormore perfectly fits that. I mean, the song for this is called Pain and Pleasure. People here want to live out the last days of the world before it's consumed by light in this place. And Shadowbringers does a fantastic job of making you utterly despise Warfrey and his rule, and kind of making you kind of sick with Yormore. It's meant to personify, like, light and kind of the over blessedness of light, and how, light is wonderful, isn't it? Not really. Bad things can transpire because of light. It's like a darkness, and you kind of get these dark ambitions with light into the darkness. I think it's very refreshing. A place that is built upon that idea, and the Sin Eaters and stuff. So Yormore, love it. As an area, it's fine. The little bar place with the stage is cool. Like the fucking strip club they have. I think everything else works. It's kind of like Idleshire in that regard, but I think it's a better Idleshire. The music is fantastic here, and obviously some quite good plot points happen here. I actually really like the side stuff involving the guy who becomes mayor, just because I think his voice actor is great, and it pays off quite nicely. And I love the characters here too. The ones who aren't evil. Outside of that one cat boy who's very forgettable, but who cares about him anyway. Vorfy's great. The little instances you get here of going into this place for the first time, wonderful. The jesters. The fight with Vanjit, where he just actually dies, and it just feels like nothing. wonderful. I love how shit Rancher is as a villain. I'm going to put it, I think, just below the gold saucer. I think that actually fits it quite nicely, actually. It being right next to the gold saucer, which is also a place of pleasure. There you go. Ilmeg. Now, if I can't think of any other area that perfectly got a bump up from the graphics patch, I don't know what I would, because Ilmeg is goddamn beautiful. It's kind of the Ishgard of the first, one would describe it as. So seeing the greenery return and the beautiful peaks of the fairies and the mystical creatures in this place is wonderful. The music here is excellent, and the style is superb. I think this area is very heavily strengthened by the style and the music. It just looks beautiful to traverse. Uyongji is great here. There's a few slow moments and spots in terms of the story, but for the most part, I like Titania, and the actual encounter with that is quite good. I think overall I like Ilmeg and what it does. There's not really a whole lot to say about it. It's just very mystical and troublesome. You've got the tribe here, where you go into the dream world, which is fun. The lighting is very pleasant to look at. You've got that great dungeon involving the fog. The stretchy fog who becomes the handsome fog. I remember that. Ilmeg is wonderful. Titania is great. Our little friend. What is her name? Feel Ull, I think? Yeah, Feel Ull. Oh god, the Seto stuff. I completely forgot about that. That's in this area. Yeah, Seto greatly boosts this area because of 5.3. So I'm gonna put that high. I'm tempted to put it higher than Lakeland. Yeah, I think I am. I don't think it's perfect. I think it's a perfectly fine zone. I don't have like a massive emotional tie to the Seto stuff, I would say, but Seto's not tied to this area though. I think like Crystarium kind of has that in the bags. But yeah, for the most part, Ilmeg is great. I think it's one of the best areas in Shadowbringers. Weirdly, we had no perfect areas, but don't you worry because we've got 2 left and they're quite good. Getting it ready. Collusia. Now, Collusia actually has a different theme. I think a few of them do, to be fair, for when the everlasting light is above, and I think that's really cool. It's sad you never get this song back in particular, because I think it's really depressing, but also lovely to listen to. Collusia is fucking great, man. I think it's the most underrated zone in the game. No one talks about it. Because like it's just another coast area. It's the Limsa coast area. Oh, it's just Middle Lanosia, and it kind of has similar vibes to Middle Lanosia actually. Those two images are very similar. I thought it was Limsa at first when I first saw this place, but no. Collusia is good. I think it perfectly encapsulates the motif of sadness in Shadowbringers. With the Sin Eaters. I think more so than Amarang actually. The skybox here is gorgeous. Like the dark green mixing with the everlasting light above creates such a striking and depressing mood. This is also the only area in the game where the everlasting light comes back, I think. Or no, it comes back in all other places as well, I think as well. But you spend a lot of time here with the everlasting. I think there's actually no point in the game where you get rid of it until you get rid of all 3. But actually no, because when you get rid of all 3, the light comes back, doesn't it? Because it was released. So actually, this area only becomes free after the end of the game, and I think that adds a lot to it. The stuff where you're climbing the giant ladder, the great ladder, obviously the timber stuff sucks, but outside of that, getting up there, getting more scenes at Emit's Grahatia, like Mount Gold, fucking brilliant dungeon. The golem stuff too, and the floating mountain. Collusia, is its own area, but I love the bridge town that comes up with Collusia as well. It's really cool. The vibe here is just wonderful. You just feel everything that Ishikara is trying to show you here with the vibe of Shadowbringers, and I have a soft spot for it, a big soft spot actually, just because I love it. It's empty, sure, It's meant to be empty. It's meant to feel like there's nothing here because the cities have destroyed it. That's why it's such a contrast to Yormore, where Yormore feels like paradise. This doesn't. This feels like not even the last vestige, like an abandoned land where people are trying to get by but struggling even to do that. And we can't even forget the dwarfs. Lally-Ho and the Near Raids are here. Which, to be fair, I'm not a big fan of the Near Raids, but I do like the area. And the fact that you can see Puppet's Bunker from Kalusia is cool. So with that in mind, I think it's going to have to go perfect. I generally have nothing bad to say about Kalusia in terms of area design. I think it's the best example in the game of a wasteland, I would say, out of all of them. So good job on that, Kalusia. You did a good job. And then we have one more. I mean, do we need to talk about this? I don't think we do. It is a perfect zone. I think, admittedly, the first half is a little bit weak with the Sahagin and the coral reefs, but having an underwater zone that isn't underwater is fascinating. And I know many people compare Amarot itself to Rapture, but I don't want to talk about Amarot yet because it's the first thing to talk about really when it comes think about Tempest. I love the underwater aesthetic. One of my favorite games ever is Soma, where you get to see the beautiful coral reefs and getting to experience that but not having to swim through it. It's really weird and really unique. So I like that about this. And the tonal whiplash of going through this area and being like, oh, there's a couple of ruins around, so we're going to see a couple of ruins while we explore this place, did not match the feeling that I had when we first saw Amarot. I mean, like, I'm glad I wasn't spoiled about it. I was spoiled about Lamentorum before even getting there, knowing that we'd go to the moon eventually, but not knowing that this giant, beautiful city sits in the waterline was a magical experience for the first time. Up there with Javania Forelands and the first time I saw Som Al. Amarot is gorgeous. They perfectly captured the feeling of an underwater city, and yes, the connections to Rapture are not lost on me. It reminds me a lot of Bioshock. Talk about music. Soken wanted to do a pretty epic piece, just like he did with the Locks or with Azazlar, but Ishikawa said the music has to be kind of sad and poetic. It needs to be calm and allow yourself to really feel the area that you're in. A recreation of Emmett Selk's love with where he comes from. And yes, this would then be done 2 more times after this with Ultima Fuel and Living Memory. But I'm going to say this now, just so we can get that argument out of the way. I think that they each do it differently enough. I don't really want them to do it a 4th time, where it's a recreation of a lost world. We don't need that a 4th time, but the execution is different each time. It's important to note that Amarot is not actually this place. Living Memory is sure, it's not the place, but it's not Alexandria. It's just a place for people to be happy. Now, Ultima Fuel is made by Dynamis. The people, they're not making their old places. They are there to exist and realize, oh, aspect civilizations are gone. But with the Tempest, it is a single man's desire to see his home again. You feel that sense of nostalgia, the homecoming, even just seeing the city. Like, the music makes you feel like you know this place, but you don't. This is your first time seeing Amarot, but you also feel like this is a home to a certain extent. And Amarot's theme, man, so can just hit like, perfectly. Weirdly, he'll do this 2 more times as well with Closing the Distance and Trail and Unending. Like, those 2 songs are fantastic as well. But man, like, it's always the first time, and the first time they did the Tempest, it's wonderful. Not even mentioning Amorot itself, or the Hades fight. Emet-Selch's confrontation with the Scions about his beliefs and how you kind of sit there and be like, he's kind of right though. Like, if we were in his shoes, we'd do the same thing, like, in a heartbeat. And, like, he never backs down from that. Doesn't necessarily feel bad about doing it, because, like, this is who he is. And I like, Endwalker, bless its heart, gets close to the feeling that Shadowbringers had at the Tempest, but doesn't quite meet it, I think. One of my favourite parts of Tempest is in the final moments before confronting Emmett. What the fuck? No, this is bad. Don't start playing the gold sword music, you fuck. Okay, here we go. The one with the clock theme. Oh god, no, I can't handle it. There we go. The final moment before you go and confront Emet-Selch, where you talk to each individual Scion, and they talk about their experiences of you in the first and how they've grown and developed since then, is one of my favourite moments in the game. I think it's more effective than what it did in Ultima Fuel, where they all each had their own swan song. Maybe a little bit, but like, I think that getting that moment really allows it to sink in and be like, this is it. This is the final confrontation with him. We have to deal with a man who is invincible in his beliefs. We can't change that. And we have to confront that reality. So, you confront him. You go through Amorot. And then you're saved by Arbert. And then the final battle happens. And he loses. Emmett loses. And he doesn't, like, get annoyed about it. He's just like, well, that's that then, isn't it? I've lost. You won. You've shown that you have more power and that you deserve this star more than I do. And the last thing he says to us isn't like words of vitriol or anger. It's just, don't forget us. Don't forget that we once lived. Don't forget that the Tempest is still here. And they could have very easily gone with the Tempest. I'm glad it didn't. They could have been like, let's wash this place away after, and then have it like be like living memory, for example. But the direction they went with it and having Amorot stay here, even after it disappeared, is wonderful. And I'm glad that this zone gets to remain here as a testament to a single man's desire to see his people again. It's still sad to think about. Like, it's a really sad zone. Like, more than Elpis, because Elpis is kind of happy to a certain extent. You get to see these people before they lost themselves. And yeah, there's not really a whole lot else to say. This one ended up going on longer than the first part because, like, I had more to say about Stormblood and Shadowbringers, and I'm going to have even more to say about Endwalker and Dawntrail, probably. But, yeah, I will see you for the finale to the whole arc with Endwalker and the beginning of the new chapter of Dawntrail next time. I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you all for part 3, the finale to this area ranking. Goodbye.